would have been the 28th.
Were you home that day?
Yes.
Can you describe the smell?
It was very strange. It was, it smelled like something was burning, but not like a house was on fire, mixed with some sort of chemical maybe. It was something I had never really smelled before, so it concerned me.
Had you seen Ramsay at any time, I guess, during that week? We're talking about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
No.
And if we're talking about the smell on Tuesday, had you seen Ramsay, if you recall, on Monday or Sunday or Saturday, anytime between that smell and the door fixing situation?
I thought I saw Ramsay coming out of his unit. It would have been that Thursday, the 30th. Real quickly, I thought because I had a flat tire, almost flat, and I was going to ask him if he could look at it to see if maybe there was enough air in it to take it to Firestone to get more air in it. But then I decided not to. I decided just to call my brother instead. And as soon as I walked back into my unit, I heard someone come out of, I heard a door opening. I wasn't sure where it was. And I saw someone come out of one of the units, so I wasn't sure if that was Ramsay or not.
So, on that Thursday, you saw somebody, you don't know what unit, you don't know if it was Ramsay, and the time before that you saw him was the time he was fixing his porch?
Correct.
How long did this smell stay in your condo?
Maybe a couple hours, 3 hours.
Did you ever go next door and knock on the door to ask about the smell?
I was going to, but I thought if it doesn't dissipate in a little while, then I would.
Did you do anything to check, I guess, around your own condo to see if it was coming from your place?
Yes, just to make sure. I checked all my appliances, and then I looked outside to see if there was a utility truck that could have been causing that smell. But I never smelled anything like that. And I just assumed that Ramsay was working on a project, some sort of special project in his home, something that involved burning or chemicals or something. So I told myself if that smell doesn't go away after a while, I'll go knock on his door or call Lakeshore Village or something.
Why, I guess, if you'd eliminated the odor coming from your unit, we have Ramsay's unit on one side, are you certain it wasn't coming from the unit on the other side of you?
No, because the other side is a common wall. Most of the units have a common wall and a firewall neighbor, and I heard one of my neighbors on the other side, on the common wall neighbor. I heard her coming in and out, so she didn't seem to be concerned about it.
All right, just to make one clarification, I'm going to hand you a document and ask if you recognize this document.
Yes, that's the statement I filled out when I was talking with Detective Ike.
Did you have a chance to review it before testifying today?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to take a look at halfway down. There's an underline and a date, and ask you to review that to yourself and see if that refreshes your recollection as to when the last time it was you saw Ramsay.
On January 24th.
Okay, can't read it. Just review it to yourself.
Oh.
And then if you indicate that it refreshes your recollection, then let me know. Then I can ask you the specific question.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So if I could have that back real quickly, thank you. If that refreshes your recollection, can you tell the jury then when it was at the time that you wrote the statement last year, when the last time you thought it was you saw Ramsay?
It was around January 25th, and he was fixing his porch.
Okay. If I could you take another look at it and read the date specifically to yourself?
Around January 24th.
Okay. So that would be that Friday?
I think it would have been that Friday, yes, because when I initially noticed the loud noise, the sound of the door against the cement, I think that was probably around the 17th or so.
In that same interview, when you're talking to Detective Ida about the smells, you also indicated there was something else unusual that was happening that week. Could you tell the jury what that was?
That week from the 25th,
6th, 27th, 28th, 29th, that week right in there.
I did hear sounds of sounds like either a electric saw or a chainsaw, or which wasn't unusual really, because Ramsay did a lot of renovations on his unit. But for some reason, during that week, it just sounded suspicious.
You used the word sneaky in your statement. Could you describe what you meant by that?
Well, it sounded like he was trying to be quiet about it, which I thought was strange, because we all knew that he was always working on he was always renovating. We could always hear loud renovation noises, sanding, and a lot of loud noises when you renovate. It sounded like someone, like I just assumed it was he was the one who was doing it. Sounded like he was trying to be quiet about it.
And how was it, I guess, that you got that sense?
It would kind of start a little bit, and then start again. It just sounded like he was trying to cover up the noise.
Did you go over next door to ask him about that?
No.
What times of day would you hear these noises?
That's hard to say. I think maybe a couple times during the day, a couple times more in the evening.
During the time that you began to smell the smell and you were hearing the suspicious saw noises, did you have a chance to speak to Miss Scrivo at any time during that time?
No.
Did you see her outside at any time during that time?
I don't believe so.
Thank you, Darcia. I have no further questions. There may be some others.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am. Appreciate you allowing us to inconvenience you like this. And I know you've been asked to tell this story many times, and sometimes the facts get jumbled. How long were you Ramsay's neighbor over on Gary Lane?
Well, he moved in 2006. It was a few years.
Were you already established there when he moved in?
Yes.
You don't live there now?
Yes.
Oh, you still live there. Okay. That's right. Your address has a different street than his, even though you're adjoining neighbors.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Were you back a year ago in January, February? Were you working then?
No.
Okay. So, do you have an active social life?
Yes.
All right. Typically, are you home most every day? And I'm focusing on January of last year.
For the most part, yes.
Okay. So you're one of those neighbors that's home a lot.
Yes.
I have a neighbor like that. People count on you to pick up their mail or their newspapers when they're away, things like that.
That hasn't happened, but yes, we're all generally good neighbors.
Okay. How would you describe your did you have a relationship with Ramsay?
As neighbors go, we were always very pleasant. When he first moved in, before I had even met him, I asked him to maybe turn the machines down, because I was trying to watch the Academy Awards, and I asked him. I just kind of yelled, "Can you turn the machines down just for the evening?" And he did.
Can I ask what machines you were referring to?
I didn't see them. I just heard them. It sounded like a big, like he was sanding something or...
Okay, so he was noisy. Here's a new guy in the neighborhood. He's making noise, and you ask him to cool it. And how does he respond?
Well, we didn't actually speak. He stopped because he heard me yell across the way. But then later, when we actually met, he said he apologized for that evening for all the noise he was making.
So you just yelled through the firewall or something like that?
Initially, yes, but then I opened the back door and just kind of yelled through his window.
Okay. And that happened in 2006?
I can't say for sure, but it was probably early in the year, shortly after he moved in. So the Oscars are usually earlier in the year. So.
Yeah, that's a winter thing. All right. So after that, anything that you can recall about your relationship with him?
We talked a few times. It's very vague, but I got the impression that he was. I got the impression that he was happier before his mother moved in.
What makes you say that?
His demeanor, his body language. There was one time in particular that I thought he wanted to talk, but I was in a hurry.
Had you ever been inside of his unit?
No, just on the porch there, kind of looking in.
Had he ever been inside of your unit?
No.
What about before Ramsay moved in? Had you ever been friendly with the neighbor that occupied the unit before Ramsay?
No, it was kind of a mystery who was living there.
Okay, so you weren't ever inside of his unit?
No.
All right. And were you aware that in 2013 he was hospitalized a number of times?
Just from the newspapers.
Okay, all right, but you don't have any personal knowledge?
Correct.
All right. You said you were on his back porch, and from that vantage point you were able to see in his back door?
Yes.
Okay. You've been on that back porch a number of times?
A few times.
You're familiar with the layout and the surroundings?
Yes, even though he had knocked out the kitchen wall.
And you could see that?
Right.
How many units are clustered together?
There are, the buildings are maybe about 7, 8 units, and then they're attached. It's kind of L-shaped, so in my building there's maybe 8. In his side there are probably 8. I'm not sure of the exact number.
So you're on the corner unit, and then his unit adjoins yours, and then there are 7 others?
Yes.
All right. Do you know the people that live in those units?
Some of them.
Oh, can you give me some names, for instance?
There was a Susan at the end there on Ramsay's side. There's Sarah and Maria, my other neighbors, and then there's Jan at the corner of my building.
You talked about noticing a chemical smell for a brief period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be any more specific about what, do you have any opinion as to what that chemical might have been?
No, I grew up in a household with, where my father and brothers he had a workroom down in the basement, a dark room, and they're always building things. They have a train station, and so I can remember smelling different chemicals, but I never smelled anything like that, so I did not know what it was.
Well, do you do your own housework?
For the most part, yes.
And do you do your own laundry?
Yes.
You're familiar with the smell of bleach or Clorox?
Mm-hmm.
Did the chemical smell you smelled smell like bleach or a cleaning agent?
It might have been. It might have been. It didn't. There wasn't a strong bleach smell.
It wasn't a bleach smell.
It could have been maybe a mixture, but there wasn't an overwhelming smell of bleach.
That's something we're all familiar with.
Right.
And in terms of darkroom chemicals, they tend to smell like vinegar, that kind of thing. Did it remind you of the darkroom chemicals you smelled as a child?
I really didn't know what it was. I just...
Had you ever smelled the same smell before?
No.
All right. I had a chance to listen to the interview you had with the detective, Detective Ike, while you were at the station. Did you know that interview was being recorded?
No, I didn't.
Okay. At one point in that interview, you described a tall man, darkly dressed, that you saw exiting from Ramsay's unit. Do you recall that conversation?
I don't know I don't think he was tall. But
okay.
Yes, I did see someone coming out of it.
Tell me about that person.
That was the same time I had the flat tire.
The very time you had the flat tire.
Right.
Yes.
And once I got inside, once I came back inside my unit, I just looked out briefly. It was very brief. The weather it wasn't snowing, but it was kind of stormy. And I just saw someone come out of one of those units. It was real quick. I just looked real quick.
But when you talked to Detective White, you told her you believed he was exiting Ramsay's unit.
That was my first, because I'm used to seeing Ramsay come out there.
Uh-huh.
So that was my first thought.
And you told her at first glance you thought it was Ramsay.
Yes.
And that's true, correct?
Yes.
You did think that.
Mm-hmm.
And on further observation, you realized it wasn't.
Right.
What do you remember about how this person was dressed?
Well, I saw him from the side. His clothes were neutral.
What do you mean by neutral?
Khaki, maybe dark.
Okay, in color.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
And yes, it was just a quick glance.
Did the person say anything to you?
No.
Did he look your way and nod?
No.
Do you think he was aware that you were seeing him?
I don't think so.
Did he linger on the porch outside Ramsay's door for very long?
No, he wasn't in a hurry or anything.
And did you see where he went after he left the porch?
No, because it was just a real quick glance.
Do you recall telling the detective that he was walking quickly as if he was going toward a vehicle?
It did seem like he was going toward a vehicle. I don't know how quickly it was.
Okay. Was he meandering, or did it appear that he had some place to go?
Neither, really. It just looked like he...
Did he linger on the porch?
No.
Was he carrying anything in his hands?
No, I don't believe so.
Was he by himself?
Yes.
Now, how would you describe his physical dimensions?
He was average height, I think.
Can you be any more specific than...
Well, because I thought it was Ramsay at first glance.
Because he was of a similar height?
Right. I thought maybe it was Ramsay's brother. But then later I just assumed it was the unit next to his.
Did someone try to suggest to you that the person may have been exiting the unit next to his?
I don't think so, because if you were to look out my back window like that, you could see how it could be either of those units, because they're so close.
And did you subsequently check with Susan or Maria or Jan to see if a man had been exiting their unit?
No.
Okay. Who is the neighbor, if you know, immediately on the other side of Ramsay's unit?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know if that occupant is a male or a female?
I have seen a couple younger men come out, and at one point I did see someone who looked like it could have been him.
This man that you saw exiting that looked like Ramsay, had you ever seen him before?
I don't think so.
Did the detectives ask you to give a more detailed description?
I don't think so.
Did they show you a book of pictures for you to look through to see if you would recognize that person?
The detectives?
Yes.
No.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Someone else asked you to look through a book of pictures to see if you could recognize that person?
A few pictures, yes.
Okay. And were you able to?
No.
And who asked you to do that?
Scott Lewis.
Scott Lewis, an investigator?
Right.
Okay. He talked to you after you had talked to the police detectives?
Yes.
All right. And what description of this man leaving the porch did you give to Scott Lewis?
Same thing, the same description.
Average height, neutral colored clothing.
Mm-hmm.
What about the hair color?
Oh, I didn't get a good look, but just sandy color, darker sandy color maybe.
Any facial hair?
No.
Did the person walk with a limp, or did he have an unusual gait?
I don't believe so.
Was the person dressed appropriately for the weather?
He wasn't. I don't think he was wearing a hat. I don't recall seeing gloves or anything like that, but I didn't recall thinking to myself that he wasn't appropriately dressed for the weather.
Do you recall telling the detectives that upon a second look, the gentleman seemed taller and younger than Ramsay Scrivo?
Yes.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is
When
that...
you're asked a question, you have to answer yes or no.
Oh.
My reporter can't take that.
Oh, okay.
Is that a true statement?
Can you just repeat it so I know?
Do you recall telling the detectives that upon second look, the gentleman that you thought was Ramsay appeared taller and younger than Ramsay?
Taller, yes, but I don't know about younger.
But definitely taller.
Maybe a little taller.
Okay. And have you seen that person since?
I did think I saw someone come out of the of Ramsay's of the other neighbors that could have been that man.
And when was that?
This was after the fact, after I found out that Ramsay was dead.
So it was sometime after last January?
Right.
Okay. And did you engage that person in conversation?
No.
Okay. And have you seen that person this week?
I don't think, no.
This month?
No.
Have you seen that person this year?
It's hard to say because I don't really know who it was.
But you know what the person looked like?
Vaguely.
Okay. Now, after you gave your description to the police detectives, did they have you meet with the police artist so you could prepare a composite of this person?
No.
No. It appears they were satisfied that you were mistaken and it must have been somebody next door. Was that your sense of it?
My objection is going to be your assumption of what the police were not satisfied with, Your Honor. That would require speculation.
I will rephrase that. He's correct, Your Honor. After you had this discussion with the police detectives, did one of the police detectives suggest to you that it could have been the unit next door?
I made that assumption at some point. I don't recall anyone making that assumption for me.
So you say now that you arrived at that assumption all by yourself?
Yes.
And if you did, why would you even bring it up?
Bring what up?
The fact that you saw a person leaving the unit next door.
Because I did say, oh, I thought, I just saw him yesterday. I just saw him yesterday.
And you thought it was the person you saw was leaving Ramsay's unit?
I thought it was Ramsay.
Leaving Ramsay's unit?
Yes.
Yes. So you thought you saw Ramsay leaving Ramsay's unit and realized it wasn't Ramsay.
Right.
All right. And then no one followed up with, no one from the police department followed up with photographs or a composite sketch.
Correct.
All right. After it became known that Ramsay was deceased, people came around and put memorials and flowers and stuffed animals on his door. Is that
Right.
so? There was a letter that you picked up. Apparently you found it to be very curious. The letter was signed Bones.
Right.
What do you recall that?
Yes.
What can you tell me about that?
I noticed that there were some flowers. I think it was shortly after Valentine's Day. I noticed that there were red roses on his back porch, and I could see a letter there. I was very curious, but I didn't touch it. But then when I was speaking to Detective Ite before we were going to have an interview, she said, "What did the letter say?" I said, "I don't know," because I didn't read it. I didn't know if that was appropriate to pick it up and read it. But she asked me to bring it in. So I did. It was a letter. It started out something, I'll miss you always, brother. And then there was something about a golf game, like a video game. You're better at that than me, and then it was signed, "Miss you always, brother," or something like that. Bones.
Are there any neighbors that go by the name of Bones?
Don't know.
Do you know anyone in the neighborhood that goes by the name of Bones?
No.
And when did you find the letter?
It was around February 18th or something, 19th.
And was it all by itself, or were there other similar items there?
There were some wilting flowers there, I believe, and there had been a candle there, but I don't know if they were there at that exact time.
What caused you to take that letter?
Detective Ite asked me to.
And so you have described the letter to Detective Ite, and then she asked you to retrieve it for her?
No, I hadn't seen the letter. I didn't touch the letter until after Detective Ite suggested that I bring it with me to the interview.
Do you know how Detective Ite knew the letter was there?
Oh, I told her.
You told her about it?
Right.
And why did you feel that was significant for her to know?
Well, just because it was a letter, it was just very curious. I was curious about it. And they say sometimes those letters are important.
But were there other letters there that you didn't take?
No.
Okay.
Not that I could see.
All right. And just to nail it down, the day that you had the flat tire and you saw the man leaving, that was the 30th of January?
Yes.
And you're sure about that date?
I am positive about that date because I remember where I was going, and yes, I am positive about that.
When you were questioned by Mr. Cataldo a few minutes ago, you talked about hearing some yelling through the wall?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember who did the yelling?
No.
Did the yelling sound like it was a man yelling, or did it sound like it was a lady yelling?
Both. It's more arguing really than yelling at the top of their voices.
Did you rule out the television?
Yes.
All right. Did you ever complain about the arguing?
No.
How long did it seem to last?
I noticed a couple arguments around Christmas time, but during that week, brief, very brief.
Nothing to get real excited about.
Correct.
Okay. Did Ramsay ever express to you that he was somehow displeased with having his mother live with him?
No, he didn't.
Okay. And did you ever speak with his mother?
A couple times, just pleasantries, really, but nothing major.
Did she ever express to you any displeasure about Ramsay?
No.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Tala?
No, there's no questions, John.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, retired to the jury room. Do not leave the jury room.
All rise for the jury, please.
Lieutenant looks at me and I go, okay, Zach, yeah. The other cop was laughing as well. We walked out, I said, geez, Lieutenant told me to get along there.
That is funny. No, I wish that.